Good morning, committee. Welcome, members of the public and members of the committee. It's good to be back. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. It's 8 a.m. or 8:01 a.m. And Mr. Caldwell, if you would be willing to take roll call.
Representative Clouston. Representative Guggenmoss.
Here.
Representative Heft. Representative McCann.
Here.
Representative Ottman.
Here.
Representative Thayer.
Here.
Representative Wasserberger.
Here.
Representative Yen.
Here.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Again, committee members, welcome back. It's great to be back to see everybody. Mr. Caldwell, we're happy to have you join us as our secretary, and Ms. French as our LSO intern. Welcome. She comes from Park County, so it's especially nice to have you here. So members of the public, I'll go ahead and go over our decorum and civility rules that LSO has provided outside of the door. If you haven't got a copy, I'll go ahead and just go over a few general guidelines, and these apply to our committee members, to members of the audience, and those that are participating and testifying online as well. So speakers will address all comments and questions to the chairman. Speakers will refrain from the use of individual names. Comments will be directed to the issue under consideration. Any testimony that strays from the topic is out of order. Speakers will refrain from making comments of a personal nature that reflect upon the character or conduct of a committee member or another speaker. Personal criticism, ridicule, and name calling is forbidden. Speakers will refrain from use of indecent and obscene language, fighting words, or any other language which is disruptive from the orderly discussion of the meeting. Time limits for addressing the committee may be imposed depending on the committee's agenda and the numbers of presenters. The chairman does have the right to enforce any of the decorum rules. So we will proceed on with the understanding that everybody understands the rules, same as last year or last session. Bless you. We will go ahead and move on to the agenda, and we have two bills that we will hear this morning in our committee. The first one on the agenda is House Bill 3, Wyoming Pregnancy Centers Autonomy and Rights. After we hear that bill, we'll move on to House Bill 4, Birthing Centers Medicaid Coverage. So the first bill is now on the table, House Bill 3, for consideration for the committee. I'll go ahead and read an introduction of this bill, as it did come out of Joint Labor, Health, and Social Services Committee during the interim as a joint committee sponsored bill. I'll go ahead and read the bill's summary on behalf of the committee, since it's not an individually sponsored bill. So this bill is designed to protect pregnancy centers in the state of Wyoming, especially from government interference, discrimination, or coercion based on their pro-life mission and beliefs. The bill makes it clear that pregnancy centers cannot be penalized, restricted, or shut down simply because they do not provide, refer for, or promote abortion, abortion-inducing drugs, or contraception. The bill also protects pregnancy centers' right to counsel women about pregnancy-related care, including information about treatments that may reverse the effects of abortion-inducing drugs. Additionally, the bill safeguards the center's staffing and hiring decisions. There is a penalty in the bill, and the bill would go into effect July 1, 2026, if enacted. So with that in mind, we will go ahead and take any comments from the committee on the bill. Representative Thayer.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair. Just a couple clarifications. Of course, this bill is so important, especially with our maternity desert. I just need some clarity or some making sure we're not setting a precedence. In this bill on page 6, it talks about the definition of a pregnancy center is a private nonprofit organization. And then when we turn to page 11, it's giving immunity and it states as a governmental entity. So I just need some clarification. The pregnancy center is a nonprofit. And then on section 3, page 11, starting on line 12, it talks, or excuse me, line 15, a governmental entity. And are we, if this is true, then are we setting a precedence that we're giving nonprofits preferential treatment?
Thank you, Representative Thayer. If there's any questions as to or specifically to the construct of the bill, we can welcome LSO to maybe entertain any feedback on that. Otherwise, I would say we might hear some testimony from that might answer that question. But in regards to the construct of the bill, I guess I should have specified in the beginning, are there any questions of LSO on the construct of the bill? Okay.
So Madam Chairman,
Yes, Representative.
I mean, unlike interim, we don't actually have any lawyers staffing the committee. So unfortunately, I don't think we'd be able to get law questions asked in that way. So I'll refrain from asking those questions.
Thank you, Representative Yen. Okay. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and open up the bill for public comment. Are there any government agencies that would like to come forward to testify on the bill? Are there any online? No. There is a government agency online? Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. And if we have three chairs up here, so if any members of the public would like to come forward, please, or actually please raise your hand if you plan on testifying. We're getting more and more folks in here. So okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. I count. Leave your hands up if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it looks like. Okay, perfect. All right, so we've got 3 chairs. Please come forward if you plan on testifying. I would just ask that you keep your comments succinct, and if you can avoid repeating anything that previous testimony says, that'd be great. Ma'am, good morning. If you'd please state your name, and we'd love to hear your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Dr. Renee Hinkle. I'm an OBGYN physician in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Been here for 27 years. I am, I'm sure all of you know, very pro-choice, pro-reproductive health care. This bill, I don't have any huge concerns about this bill. I don't think it's necessary. The pregnancy care centers are businesses, and they can run as businesses. They have the same First Amendment rights as every other business. We're also a very right to work state. So you can choose who to hire and not hire. So I'm not sure why this particular bill is necessary for those purposes. My biggest concern with this bill is that if, as this body has in the past thought of using pregnancy care centers for our areas of the state that are pregnancy deserts, then they should, if they're going to be doing medical care, have the same regulations as any entity that's going to perform medical care. And so in that way, they may have to be regulated. As a business owner and OBGYN, we have ultrasonographers who are certified, and we have to make sure that those certifications stay up to date. And so we are regulated in different ways. And so if we are going to use pregnancy care centers in that way, and they are going to be performing medical procedures. They may have to be regulated in certain ways. And so I'm not sure how this bill would work in those ways. And if they're going to be giving out medications such as progesterone for what they believe is a reversal of abortion medications, which there's been no scientific evidence to show that that's the case, then that we want to make sure that they're not performing medicine without a license and those types of things. So there are just some concerns I have that, you know, as a clinic that is purporting to perform medical care and medical procedures, that they should be regulated the same way all other medical clinics are.
Thank you, Dr. Hinkle. Committee, any questions? Dr. Hinkle. Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Hinkle, for being here. Do you know, do we have centers like this that are handing out medications and doing ultrasounds in Wyoming?
Dr. Hinkle.
Yes, Chairman Rodriguez, Representative Clouston. There are definitely clinics or care centers in Wyoming that are performing ultrasounds for sure. I don't know if they're giving out medications.
Additional questions, Representative Yen.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Dr. Hinkle, appreciate you coming as a medical provider. You know, I know we had a bill a couple years ago that was trying to protect nurses and other healthcare professionals against attacks in the workplace. It's interesting that we're willing to extend this protection towards pregnancy centers. Do you think we should extend this protection towards all healthcare providers? Because, you know, it does seem like violence is on the rise in healthcare still. Maybe we should extend the protection to everybody.
Dr. Hinkle.
Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez. Representative Yen, obviously, yes, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the concerns that I have with this bill, again, being unnecessary for a particular entity. If we're going to have some protections for certain facilities, we should have those same protections for all facilities. And you know, nurses and physicians in medical practices across the state can be sued or regulated. And why should pregnancy centers be any different? I don't understand the distinction, to be honest.
Thank you. Additional questions, committee? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us. Please come forward. We have 3 chairs if you plan on testifying. Good morning. Please state your name and we will hear your testimony on House Bill 3.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Wendy Volk. I am speaking today as a private citizen and as a mother and a wife and a business person here in Cheyenne. I believe Wyoming is capable of holding more than one principle at the same time. We can affirm that pregnancy centers serve women with compassion and conviction. Many are faith-based and they should not be forced to violate their mission, perform abortions, or promote services that contradict their beliefs. And we can also affirm that the Wyoming Constitution protects an individual's right to make his or her own healthcare decisions, as our Supreme Court recently decided. These 2 principles do not have to cancel each other out. The court's recent decision established that healthcare decisions are a fundamental individual right under the Healthcare Freedom Amendment. That means legislation touching pregnancy-related services will now be viewed through a constitutional lens requiring careful tailoring. House Bill 3 states that pregnancy centers cannot be compelled to act against their mission. That is a value many in this room likely share, but the bill also creates automatic treble damages, mandatory attorney fees, and broad liability provisions. That raises important questions about scope and balance. Wyoming can protect pregnancy centers from compelled speech or discriminatory targeting. And Wyoming can ensure that neutral, generally applicable health and safety standards remain intact. Wyoming can respect religious liberty, and Wyoming can respect constitutional protections for individual healthcare decisions. The question before you is not whether pregnancy centers deserve protection. The question is whether this bill is drafted narrowly enough to achieve that protection without creating unintended legal consequences or constitutional friction. Careful drafting strengthens legislation. Narrow tailoring protects taxpayers. Precision honors both freedom and conscience and constitutional order. This does not need to be framed as pro-life versus pro-choice. It can be framed as pro-constitution and pro-clarity. Wyoming voters adopted the Healthcare Freedom Amendment to protect individual liberty from government overreach. Our Supreme Court has interpreted that amendment. Now the legislature has the opportunity in a way that respects interpretation while upholding freedom of conscience. We can do both. I encourage thoughtful refinement to ensure this bill reflects Wyoming's tradition of principle, limited, and balanced government. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Volk from the committee? Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You brought up refinements, but you didn't give any examples. Could you give us an example or two of those, please?
Ms. Volk.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Representative McCann. I think this gets so narrowly specific to just pregnancy centers. And as I think the previous testimony spoke that all clinics should have, all medical facilities should have similar protections then, not just isolated. And so I think we're getting really into the weeds here. And I think that, for example, I've had a family member go to a pregnancy center and they don't have to necessarily respect the same privacy and HIPAA protections. So if I go into my dentist or I go into my gynecologist, what I share with them has to remain private. So I think all healthcare providers should be on the same level playing field. And that's what I'm concerned about, is we're creating an unequal playing field. And we're really setting up, I think, for myself as a taxpayer, to be paying for a lot of legal bills that our legislation is going to be going. If our legislature continues going into these matters, we need to solve problems, not create further legal problems.
Thank you, Ms. Volk. Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Ma'am, if you'd please state your name and we'll hear your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Britt Borrell. I am the Executive Director for WYO United. We are a nonpartisan organization that is focused on advocating for reproductive freedom and expanding access to reproductive care in Wyoming. So I think we face similar desires to alleviate our maternity care deserts in Wyoming. First, as I have said many times in front of this committee, I do not protest these centers' right to exist or to exercise their First Amendment rights in advocating against abortion. I even think that it is wonderful that they provide diapers and parenting classes to our communities. I don't think anyone here is attacking these centers' rights to exist. However, I do echo the concerns I have heard, as I do not see why this particular group of nonprofits should be afforded special protections under the law. What I do find troubling about these centers is their dishonesty. Their advertisement to women and girls experiencing unexpected pregnancy indicates that they will provide accurate information about all options available to them, including abortion, but they peddle misinformation about abortion care in particular. They lure people in by offering free pregnancy tests and ultrasounds. However, because they are unregulated, they are under no obligation to have certified ultrasound techs administer those tests. In fact, there is ongoing litigation against one of these centers in Massachusetts that failed to diagnose an ectopic pregnancy with their ultrasound, and the woman in question in that case ended up losing her fertility. I'm also concerned over these centers' lack of adherence to HIPAA. If they are going to masquerade as healthcare providers and collect sensitive private information about Wyoming women, they should be required to protect that sensitive data. Because they are currently unregulated, confidentiality statements on their websites are completely unenforceable. And finally, I also have major problems with this bill's provision in particular to protect these centers' rights to push abortion pill reversal procedures. According to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, this is unproven and unethical care that I don't think that they should be able to tout hormone treatment to a sensitive group of pregnant people to reverse this care. We can talk a little bit more about what is involved in abortion pill reversal if you're curious. So I ask you to please vote no, or at least amend this bill to enforce HIPAA protections and eliminate those protections for pushing untested, unethical treatment. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you repeat your last name?
Borrell, B-O-R-I-L.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Ms. Borrell? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Further testimony, please come forward. We've got 3 seats and people waiting online, so let's fill these chairs. Good morning. If you'd state your name for the committee, and we'd love to hear your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Jeanette Ward, and I am speaking on behalf of myself. I am on in support of this bill draft. I find it interesting that some speakers previously spoke about pregnant people. Pregnant people. There's no pregnant people. There are pregnant women. There are only pregnant women. Biological reality states, and it is inherently obvious to everyone in this room, that there are only pregnant people, or only pregnant women, not pregnant people. Who comes up with these terms? Pregnant people. That is crazy. Killing babies is not healthcare. Even the executive director of the Wyoming Medical Association admitted in testimony to this committee that there are 2 patients in pregnancy care. And by the way, the courts have affirmed the right of people to address individuals by name when addressing committees. So I'd like to remind the committee of that. If we really believe that entities that perform medical type procedures, and I use that term loosely, should be regulated, why don't we apply that to the abortuaries? Yet, when the Wyoming legislature tried to do that, the pro-death contingent sued, and a judge suspended those regulations. If we are going to make this argument, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Thank you.
Thank you, former Representative Ward. Committee, any questions? You see none. Thank you for joining us this morning. Sir, please state your name and who you're with, and we'll love to hear your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Steve Milia from Cheyenne, right here in Wyoming. I've worked in public health for 30 years, both in Houston, Texas, with the City of Houston Health Department, where I had training from Planned Parenthood, and I had also worked with them, not for them, and also pregnancy centers in Houston, Texas. And I was the janitor for the Life Choice Pregnancy Center for 2 years here in Cheyenne, and I met the staff, the medical professionals that were there, and I know that they work with the utmost ethics. They don't share people's information with other people other than necessary medical providers in the center on a need-to-know basis. They don't lure people in. They don't give misinformation. When I was in Houston, Texas, and had to work with Planned Parenthood, they had nothing good to say about these pregnancy centers and worked to destroy them as much as possible. And it's also worked in other states. Here, they do provide excellent care. They do have trained professionals on their ultrasound machines, and they do have medical staff who are certified in the particular fields that work in these centers. They are professionals, they are mothers, they are fathers, and yes, they do provide a lot of classes. They provide a lot of supplies that I've seen down there personally myself, and they are very conscious as far as helping the mothers and the fathers, married or unmarried, doesn't make any difference. They treat everyone the same, and they want to make sure that they give the excellent care they want. As in other states, the pregnancy centers have been attacked and had to spend a lot of money in defense in the courts, and I would not want to see that here. I think that is why this bill says they need to have this particular protection, because we don't know if and when it will come about. And though the first 2 speakers, I usually disagree with them, I would have to agree with them on the points that they are a private business. They can faith-based. They can conduct their procedures and what they're doing. So I applaud that, and I think that all nurses, as Representative Jen had mentioned, healthcare providers need the protection rather than just being one particular state. But I am fully in support of this bill. I hope that you'd pass on it, because the pregnancy centers do excellent work. I've seen it firsthand in Houston and here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, committee, of Mr. Milia? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your testimony and for joining us. Ma'am, please state your name and who you're with, and we'd love to hear your testimony.
Madam Chair and esteemed members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Alicia Ruiz, and I have 2 children, one of which would not be here today without our local pregnancy care center. Almost 6 years ago, I was a client of Life Choice with an unplanned pregnancy. My relationship of 17 years was in ruin due to my infidelity, and the paternity of my child, of that unborn child, was uncertain. Financial strain was also an issue as we lived paycheck to paycheck, and I did not have good health insurance coverage at the time. Due to these circumstances, I had scheduled an appointment to have an abortion and was literally within days of following through with the abortion. I received sound counsel to have an ultrasound before aborting and was referred to the local pregnancy care center because the services were free. The staff would have normally been in surrounding communities with their mobile medical unit the day that my significant other had called, but the executive director happened to be in the building and answered the call. She contacted the nurse and the rest of the staff in the mobile medical unit, and they turned around from their journey to Torrington and came back to Cheyenne immediately to be able to see me. I tell you those details to point out the dedication of those that work in the pregnancy care centers to serve their communities. Upon arrival for my appointment, I was shown great compassion and care. Everything was completely confidential. There was privacy policies and all those types of things that I had to sign. Same intake as any medical clinic I've been to. I was informed of all my options regarding the pregnancy, including abortion and what those procedures would look like and the different ways that they would happen. My appointment was for a chemical abortion, so I was educated on what that would look like. And also the opportunity for adoption, whether it's closed adoption or open adoption. I hadn't even considered that as a possibility, but I was informed in all of those. When I saw the heartbeat of my unborn child on the ultrasound screen, I knew that I couldn't go through with the abortion. Without access to that free ultrasound, I would have made a different and uninformed decision that would affect the rest of my life, and my son would not be in kindergarten today. Supporting House Bill 3 allows pregnancy care centers to continue to provide free services like those I received, allowing access to care in critical moments for countless men, women, and families that could not otherwise afford such services like myself. I respectfully request that you vote in favor of House Bill 3 to ensure this care remains available. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Ms. Ruiz? Representative Klauston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Rees, for your testimony. My wife and I financially support the center in Gillette, and it's stories like yours that make me feel good about that. So I know this wasn't easy. I really want to thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Klauston.
I don't have questions.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for your testimony, for joining us. Ma'am, please state your name and who you're with, and we'd love to hear your testimony.
Is it not on? Okay, very good. Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Valerie Berry, and I am a private citizen of generational Wyomingites. I am the executive director of Life Choice Pregnancy Care Center. Life Choice serves women, men, and families in critical moments, as you just heard. We provide free and professional medical care while fully safeguarding patient and client confidentiality. We operate on a permission-based model that ensures patients retain full autonomy over their appointments while we provide the medical information. Without services like ours, like you've just heard, many of the individuals we serve would go without care. Our services include pregnancy testing, limited ultrasounds, and pregnancy options consultations like Alicia mentioned, along with the essential women's health services such as STI and UTI testing, as well as women exams. We also offer after-abortion support, care for women following miscarriage and pregnancy loss or infant loss, and education material and assistance for parents and families. We also serve men by offering STI testing and treatment, as well as education for material goods. All of this is provided at no cost to patients and no cost to taxpayers. We partner with existing health and social services and other medical clinics. My concern is not hypothetical. Across the country, government officials are increasingly targeting pregnancy care centers. This legislation is not about creating division. It's about protecting constitutional freedoms, freedom of speech, and freedom of conscience. Wyoming has the opportunity to act proactively to protect life-saving work of pregnancy centers before government overreach occurs. House Bill 3, the CARE Act, is critically important because it protects pregnancy care centers from compelled speech and discrimination based on their pro-life beliefs and ethical mission. The bill prohibits state and local governments from forcing centers to provide or refer abortions, promote abortion services, or post government mandated messaging. It also prevents officials from silencing lawful consultations, as Alicia spoke about, the options in pregnancy, or requiring centers to act against their ethical mission. Supporting House Bill 3 protects access to care for women, men, and families, respects constitutional freedoms, and prevents government overreach before it occurs. It also saves taxpayers' dollars. When government overreach restricts the care we provide, costs are shifted to state systems and taxpayers. For these reasons, I respectfully urge you to support House Bill 3, the CARE Act. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Ms. Berry? Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you, Ms. Berry.
Yes.
Appreciate you being here. So you state that it's a proactive bill. So I was looking at what it's restricting. So it's restricting the state or any of its political subdivisions on page 8 and 9. I'm curious on what city or political subdivision or county, or you think the state's going to do these restrictions? What are we protecting against? Who are we afraid of doing any of these things?
Well, at this point, there
Ms.
is
Berry?
nothing. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Representative Yin, yes, thank you for your question. At this point, Wyoming does not have any centers that are under attack, but over the third of the states in our nation are seeing very many activists that are coming against pregnancy care centers simply because of our pro-life stance.
So Madam Chairman, just to confirm, there is no place in Wyoming that has tried to do or even attempted to do any of the things that this bill is supposedly supposed to protect against.
Representative Yin, yes, that is true.
Further questions? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Berry. Just question just on the cost shifting that you mentioned. Can you talk about that a little bit more, please?
Right.
Ms. Berry.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Chairwoman Rodriguez Williams and Representative Clouston. Would you repeat your question for me?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Berry. So the question is, you had mentioned cost shifting, how
Yes.
these centers save money in other ways. Could you talk about that a little bit more, please?
Right. Many of our clients that come are under poverty level. Many of them are marginalized, and it's disproportionate in the way that they receive their medical services. We have many clients that come in that have waited till 7 months pregnancy because they've not been able to afford any care with their pregnancy. And so the loss of any action towards a pregnancy care center would cause us not to be able to serve the underprivileged. And so that would shift over if they go to any other services within the state. Thank you.
Further questions of Ms. Berry? Okay, seeing none. I have one for you, Ms. Berry.
Thank you.
Ma'am, several years ago, after the Dobbs versus Jackson Supreme Court decision, there was a militant pro-abortion rights group called Jane's Revenge. And there were several pregnancy centers on that hit list. within the state of Wyoming that were listed.
Okay.
Was your center listed on that, to your knowledge?
Madam Chair, I have only been at the Pregnancy Care Center for 3 years, and so I'm unaware of that case. It's a possibility. But all the pregnancy care centers in the state of Wyoming work together, and so when one is attacked, we're all attacked.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Additional questions? Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Mr. Barry. As reading through this, I'm kind of under the understanding to kind of protect you guys from being forced to offer a service, say like abortion, for example. Do you know of anywhere nationwide, or has that been a concern here in the state before where you were expected to provide that as a service as well, along with your other services?
Thank you.
Ms. Berry.
Thank you, Representative Rossenberger. In the state of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, there have been attacks along those lines. I'm unfamiliar with the exact litigation or the regulations that have been imposed on them. But yes, that is possibilities in the United States.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for your testimony.
Thank you.
And for joining us.
Yes.
Sir, please state your name and we'd love to hear your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and committee. My name is Nathan Winters. I'm the president of the Wyoming Family Alliance, and I rise in support of House Bill number 3. I appreciate very much the effort that has gone into it. Pregnancy resource centers exist for one purpose: to help pregnant women with free, practical, compassionate support in many ways that no government program or abortion provider ever would. And they include, of course, in some places, ultrasounds, pregnancy tests, and a lot of additional services. And to say that they are unregulated or dishonest, I believe, is simply false. They are clear about their mission from the very beginning. They counsel the mother, and what I have watched is they often counsel that scared young father as well as the mother, and provide so much help for the baby in the womb, because they all operate understanding that each of those are worthy of dignity as human beings with value. And so as I've watched these all across the state of Wyoming, all 10 of them, and they offer differing services, but in every step of the way, they do that very carefully, following the laws of the state of Wyoming. I want to just address one thing. In my 14 years in or around the legislature, I've watched people use different kind of talking points or statements, a kind of common refrain when they're searching for a reason to oppose a bill, but there's not a good reason to do so. And it's the question that, if summarized, was this: well, it's not happening here. And it's so important to understand that the best way to do law is to have it in effect before it's needed. Which is the way, by the way, even at the founding of the state, all of the laws that were enacted at the enabling of the state were in response to what is likely to happen in the future. When we look at that kind of preparatory work for good law and having it in place beforehand, that is the duty and responsibility of the legislature. That's the reason I do believe that this is an excellent law, and I appreciate it very much. Madam Chairman, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Mr. Winters? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Winters, for being here. You talked about the legal, looking out for things coming in the future. I appreciate this bill and the mission of this bill. The part I'm having problems with is the special protections granting immunity from tort reform or tort liability. Do you know of any other businesses, special occasions in Wyoming where we give such special protections to one group?
Madam Chairman
Mr.
and
Winters.
Representative, thank you very much for the question. When we look at that, I'd have to go through the entirety of the statute to try to look that up, and I don't have that in front of me right now. I do know that in other states, and a few were already mentioned. I know that in Vermont and Illinois, they were specifically targeted in such a way where it stood out as something different than most other businesses. And so as a result, it became clear to so many across the country that it's important that we actually do try to protect these centers in a very specific way.
Additional questions, committee? Seeing none, thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you. Okay, we will hear your testimony, and then we're going to go ahead and move to online testimony. If you'd please state your name, and we'd love to hear your
Thank you,
testimony.
Chairman. My name is Linda Burt, and I'm sorry I'm a little froggy this morning. So I'm with Wyoming Right to Choose. I'm also a local attorney here in Cheyenne. And I want to go back a little bit to the questions that have been asked about the special privileges in this bill. And I believe that that's the issue here. I don't think the issue is about whether pregnancy centers are good, whether they're bad, whether they're truthful, whether not truthful. I don't think that's the issue in this bill. The Supreme Court has protected crisis pregnancy centers fairly well in terms of free speech issues. There was a case just mentioned about New Jersey. I went and looked at that case last night. And the Supreme Court seems to be poised at this time to support the crisis pregnancy center and their free speech issues. And that's generally been the case with Supreme Court cases regarding free speech and crisis pregnancy centers. These centers have exactly all the same protections that everyone else in the nonprofit organization world has. They have free speech protections. These protections have gone as far as saying that they do not have to give medically appropriate information, that it is a free speech issue. This particular bill does provide protections and privileges that no other organizations in Wyoming, as far as nonprofits, will have. In Wyoming, there is a section in our Constitution under Article 3 that precludes that. So if this bill is to give those protections to nonprofit organizations, then it should open it up to all those organizations. But this bill is not necessary. They have all the free speech protections that you and I and every other nonprofit organization and business has. This would indeed give special protections and special privileges. And that section in our particular Constitution is Article 3, and I think it's Section 27, that talks about special privileges and special protections. And that is my concern about this bill. I don't think it has anything to do with whether crisis pregnancy centers are valuable or not. I think there's been testimony that certainly on some levels, there are places where they are valuable. And I also have not seen in 40 years in Wyoming, anyone talking about not protecting or supporting these particular organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Ms. Bird? Okay, seeing none,
Thank you.
thank you for joining us. Sir, we'll go ahead and hear your testimony if you can keep it succinct, and then we'll move to online. Thank you for joining us. If you'd state your name and we'll hear your testimony.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your work, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. John B. Romero Martinez, and I stand in support today of this bill, and I have my statement here, and it's pretty succinct. So I'm just going to say, clearly, most people know that I am pro-life and pro-choice, but the reason why it's kind of unique because I just spoke to members of the group that spoke previously, and that's why their name is Life Choice. Well, in the scripture, it says to choose life. The reason why I'm here today is precisely because I've been supporting the pro-life community for most of my life. Supporting the life-affirming doctors, nurses, spiritual fathers, mothers, pastors, deacons, members of church leadership groups, even atheists for life. There's even other groups that you wouldn't think that are for life, but they're for life. To collaborate, build coalitions, and encourage the culture of life in every way possible in both prayer and action by many initiatives, programs, and groups. To build, fund, and provide gospel of life care systems for pregnancy resource or care. And I noticed on this pen, it says pregnancy care centers. We're here to provide care as a community. Hospitals, movements which include but are not limited to talking to both pro-life and pro sides of the political spectrum to encourage authentic science that defines human life by the scientific way, which, not to recap, but 46 chromosomes for a normal person, and 47 chromosomes in the case of Down syndrome. Life Choice is the brand that our Pregnancy Resource Center in Laramie County uses, and 100% Pro-Life is a brand that I've been using. The bottom line is there's a full spectrum, and I don't want to speak any statistics that are already logged in the books, but I yesterday had the Life Care Center come to a local church, and there was about 35 of us, and they're new to the deal. And the statistic, 3 of them that I want to share that a few people have asked about, what abortion looks like today. 62% are religious affiliated. 75% are low income to poor. 59% already have a family. 60% are in their 20s. 39% are white. 28% are African. 25% are Hispanic. 6% are Asian. And with numbers like this, other organizations that purport to care really don't care, because like the previous legislator that spoke about 5 people back, the water has been muddied with the conversation of pro-life versus pro-choice. If we used clear language, it would be pro-life versus pro-death. We need more of these bills to protect life, and we also need to expand in the future. I don't think on this bill, but there is something called post-abortion trauma. And so I support House Bill. So for these reasons, I support House Bill 3. And it's a preemptive strike to attacks to address the issue of why it's needed. Just because something hasn't been attacked yet, the local cathedral was attacked recently. Even with preemptive strikes, people are going to find ways to attack. We have to make every effort to protect these groups. Thank you. I yield back the rest of my time.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of the former representative? Seeing none. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Caldwell, we'll go ahead and move to online testimony. And I believe you said we have about 6.
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Okay, so those that are joining us online, please make sure you have your hand raised if you want to speak. And I'm just going to ask that you limit your testimony to around 2 minutes if you can, so we can hear everybody and move along so we can get to the next bill as well. So Mr. Caldwell, if you would bring in.
First is, I have Sawyer Poitra ready to testify.
Okay, I don't have that name. Say it again, please.
Sawyer Poitra.
Sawyer. Poitras. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Sawyer Poitra, and I am the CEO and Director of the Women's Resource Center in Gillette, Wyoming. We serve Northeast Wyoming as a pregnancy center, and I will not repeat all the great things that pregnancy centers do. I think all of you are very aware of those things. I just will answer some of the things that have already been said or some of the questions. The comment that we are masquerading as healthcare providers is truly false. I myself am the registered nurse, and all of our nursing staff is registered, licensed by the state. And our clinic is overseen by a board certified OBGYN. And so everything is approved. All the medical information that goes out to all of our patients is approved through our medical director, and oversight is done through that. So we are licensed medical professionals. We are certified in limited obstetrical ultrasounds and have those credentials to be able to do that type of scan to confirm pregnancy. Also, just the question was raised that asking if we do ultrasounds and if we hand out medication. Yes, we do. And we have the proper licensed to be able to do that and prescribe medication through our medical director. And then the last part, just privacy and confidential, these talking points that we are not HIPAA certified. Under the federal definition, we are not a covered entity since we do not transmit any private health information in an electronic form, specifically insurance. We do not charge for our services, so we are not billing insurance. And so that all has to do with HIPAA. Of course, everything is private and confidential for our patients in every other regard. We do not charge though, so insurance is not a part of that equation, but we can still keep all of our patients' information confidential and private. And so because of that, we just thank you for your time and your support for this bill, because pregnancy centers have faced attacks, and even in our surrounding states, there's been anti-pregnancy center bills introduced. And so I thank you for your support and favor in House Bill 3.
Thank you, Ms. Poitra. Committee, any questions? The director. I have one for you. I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked the other director of pregnancy center several years ago. I'm not sure how long you've been a director, but was your pregnancy center on the hit list for Jane's Revenge?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We were. I've been the director for over 10 years, have served at our pregnancy center for 15 years. And yes, we are on that hit list. We are also an affiliate with different pregnancy centers. And so some of our sister centers that were actually part of that, they were hit. They were one of them that were had a bomb, that went off at their center. And so it is a real thing, and there is threats to pregnancy centers specifically, and so that's why we need specific legislation because of that.
Thank you, ma'am. Representative Yin has a question. Go ahead, Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you, Ms. Poitra. So this bill doesn't protect against violence. Would you be supportive of some sort of protection against violence for healthcare workers just in general?
Ms. Poitra.
Thank you. I mean, yes, I think obviously the time that we are living in is getting more and more violent. And so anytime that we can protect healthcare providers, I think that's great. But I think this bill is what is needed right now, because we are seeing legislation being passed in multiple states that are specifically against pregnancy centers.
Thank you. Committee, any additional questions? Seeing none, Ms. Poitra, thank you for joining us. Mr. Caldwell, if you'd bring in.
Next is Denise Berg.
Thank
She's
you.
having some audio issues, but I've allowed her phone to
Okay.
communicate, so hopefully she can speak.
Okay, Ms. Berg, please state your name. We'll hear your testimony.
Good morning. This is Denise Burke. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead and proceed.
I apologize for technical issues. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I am Denise Burke, Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. House Bill 3 prevents pregnancy centers from being singled out for discrimination or censorship because of their pro-life principles. It protects their rights of free expression and free association, rights guaranteed by both the U.S. and Wyoming constitutions. It is not, as some have claimed, special treatment or a blanket exemption from oversight and regulation. The bill simply states that a pregnancy center may not be targeted for action simply because of its pro-life principles. It does not deal with any other circumstance in which regulation or oversight might be appropriate. Importantly, the U.S. Supreme Court's 2018 ruling in NIFLA versus Becerra does not preclude the need for House Bill 3, as some have claimed. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in NIFLA that a national network of pregnancy centers was likely to win its claim that the government cannot compel pro-life groups and individuals to express messages that conflict with their beliefs. The court specifically found that a requirement for pregnancy centers to post notices about state-funded reproductive services was an unconstitutional violation of their First Amendment protections. It also found that the requirement forcing non-medical pregnancy centers to add large disclosures about that status to their advertisements and wrongly implying that they were unqualified to provide charitable services was also unconstitutional. This case did not hold in any way, shape, or form that pregnancy centers are not required to give medically accurate information. This was a victory for the First Amendment rights of pregnancy centers, but it has not stopped state legislatures from considering and even enacting legislation that would compel centers to speak messages that violate their core beliefs or target or seek to chill their speech. For example, in 2013, Illinois enacted a bill that was predicated on the false assertion that the information pregnancy centers should provide clients was deceptive. Illinois later agreed not to enforce that law after a court challenge. And just this year, New Jersey introduced Assembly Bill 3753 that mandates that pregnancy centers post signs indicating that they are not quote unquote licensed healthcare facilities. This type of requirement was ruled unconstitutional in NIFLA versus Becerra, but that has not stopped New Jersey legislators from pursuing its enactment. Nor is the claim that no state is forcing pregnancy centers to perform or refer for abortions valid. Illinois pregnancy centers have spent 8 years challenging a state law requiring them to refer women for abortions. Earlier this year, HHS notified the state that the referral mandate violates federal law. And Michigan was sued last week for a new law that would require pregnancy centers to hire individuals who do not share their pro-life values. Pregnancy centers should not have to endure years of litigation to vindicate their constitutional rights. House Bill 3 ensures that they are not singled out for unconstitutional mandates simply because of their pro-life principles. It allows Wyoming to be proactive in protecting the critical work of pregnancy centers and ensuring that women have the choice and opportunity to access the care, material support, and educational options they offer both now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Committee, any questions of Ms. Burke? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Burke, for your testimony. I just have a question on this bill. When we get towards the end, there's special protections. What recourse would a woman have if something harmful happened to her at one of our centers? If we give them these special protections that are in this bill, would she have any recourse? Say she has an ectopic pregnancy that was missed, and she loses her fertility. The way I read this bill is going to not allow her to have any legal recourse on these centers. How would you address that question?
Ms. Burke.
Madam Chairman, Representative, this bill deals with governmental action. It dictates what legislative bodies can and cannot do with regard to pregnancy centers. It does not in any way impact what someone harmed potentially at a pregnancy center could do to fulfill their legal rights.
Thank you. Committee, any further questions of Ms. Burke? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for joining us. We'll hear from the next
Next
person.
is Katie Nutter.
Okay, Ms. Nutter, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me this morning. My name is Katie Knutter, and I'm the Executive Director of Wellspring Health Access. My organization operates the state's only procedural and medication abortion facility. And I would thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address the committee today regarding this bill. We stand in opposition to this bill. We have grave concerns. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists recognizes crisis pregnancy centers as a threat to public health because of the information that they do provide and that they do not provide. And I'm not going to repeat a lot of things that have already been said by other speakers this morning, but I would want to mention again the issue of covered entities with HIPAA. As cited by previous pregnancy center directors, they are not covered entities by HIPAA. And that means that if they represent themselves as a medical clinic that would be covered by HIPAA, it is an attempt to make people think that they have rights that they do not have when they go to one of these centers. Basically, it means that if someone goes to a center, they think it is covered by HIPAA because they think it is a medical center like their doctor's office or the health department. Then they would have no federal redress if their information was leaked to outside groups. If their information was not kept private, in a normal case, you could then seek redress, and in this case, you couldn't. And that makes then us have grave concerns about enacting further protections at the state level for centers who are completely unregulated by federal regulations. If centers want to provide medical care, then they need to be regulated like other medical providers, and that means that they need to be abiding by HIPAA. And I know personal circumstances in both this state and other states where we've seen that not happen, where we've seen church groups, other unaffiliated groups receive people's information from people who have visited pregnancy centers. I even know of cases where law enforcement have been called in welfare checks in states where abortion is illegal after someone has visited a pregnancy center. So we have really grave concerns that people think their information is being kept private in a way that it would be at any legitimate medical provider, and it is not. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Committee, any questions of Ms. Nutter? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us. We'll bring in
The last is Ross Schriftman.
okay. Mr. Schriftman, please proceed.
Good morning. My name is Ross Schriftman. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I am president of the Natrona County chapter of Wyoming Right to Life. We have 600 volunteers in our group. We are very much in support of this legislation. I had presented to the committee or sent to the committee my written testimony, so I'll be brief. This legislation is essential because of the national effort of various pro-abortion politicians that run various states with a legal attack. And I'll just mention three of them briefly. The case in New Jersey has actually gone up to the Supreme Court of the United States, which takes a long time. During the testimony, this was a case where the New Jersey Attorney General subpoenaed the internal communications and donor lists of one of the pregnancy resource centers. And during the hearing before the Supreme Court, Justice Clarence Thomas asked the state's attorney, have you had any complaints of donors to this pregnancy resource center? And he had to admit that no, there had not been. So this was actually what's called a chilling effect to try to get donors not to contribute to this pregnancy resource center, claiming that people might be fooled thinking they were supporting an abortion business and not a pregnancy resource center. Case down in Colorado, a federal judge just ruled that the state has to pay $5.4 million for trying to shut down a pro-life clinic that was promoting the abortion reversal pill. Now, the abortion reversal pill is nothing more than progesterone to provide nutrition to a baby whose mother has taken the first abortion pill, which is designed to starve the baby, and then changed her mind. And despite what's been said, there are many, many instances of babies being saved with this pill. It's nothing but progesterone, which is used to treat women that have had histories of miscarriage. Finally, Massachusetts, the governor is running a massive taxpayer-funded public relations campaign to warn citizens about the dangers of pregnancy help centers. So if you go in a subway station in Massachusetts or in Boston, you'll see signs that encourage women or warn women about the dangers of going to pregnancy resource centers.
Mr. Schiffman, I have to
Yes.
stop you.
Yeah.
We've gone over quite a bit.
Okay. Thank you for your time, and we're in support.
Thank you, Mr. Schiffman. Committee, any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Mr. Caldwell, is that it? Okay, I will close public comment. Committee, what is your pleasure on House Bill 3? Bill has been moved by Representative Gugamas and seconded by Representative Ottman. Discussion, amendments. Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, the first amendment I would make is on page 11. Page 11 to strike lines 5 through 8. We've seen this in other bills. It's a separation of powers issue. I mean, this part alone, frankly, risks the constitutionality of the whole bill. I think no court is going to say, yes, it's okay for the legislature to intervene in its own branch of government. So with that, I move to strike lines 5 through 8 on page 11.
Okay, is there a second? Page 11, lines 5 through 8. The motion is to delete lines 5 through 8. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Clouston. Discussion on the amendment to delete lines 5 through 8. Okay, seeing none. Okay, Representative Ottman has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Do you know about this? What does this section do?
Further clarity, Representative Yen.
Madam Chairman, I mean, I think you've had this in your own bill drafts as well, so I'm sure you could speak on it, but it basically allows any member of the legislature to intervene if a government body decided to do something that violated this bill, and then the pregnancy center decided to take that government body to court for a civil case, any individual legislator, the legislature by legislative order could appoint members to intervene in the case. And again, I don't think the judiciary takes kindly to the legislature intervening within their court.
Thank you for the clarity. Further discussion on the amendment. Okay, seeing none, sensing the urge to vote. All those in favor of Representative Yin's amendment on page 11 to delete lines 5 through 8 by a hand raise and a voice vote, please state aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
No. Okay, the motion has failed. Our amendment has failed. Further amendments from the committee. Further discussion. Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thanks. I would move to widen this protection to everybody. If it's about protecting this specific ideology, I get that. But I don't know why we would limit it to only these specific entities. So on page 6, we can broaden who gets covered by changing the definition of a pregnancy center. For example, hospitals promote childbirth and provide some counseling and classes, but they might not necessarily promote alternatives to abortion. So I would strike on line 23, alternatives to abortion. And so they would still be protected if they have, for example, where is it? Pro-life, shoot, sorry. The bill gets kind of big because we have a lot of definitions.
Representative Yin, forgive
Yeah.
me, did you?
So I'll
did
make
you
the
move?
motion and I
Okay.
won't continue talking until someone seconds it. So appreciate that, Madam Chairman.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend on page 6, line 23 And if you can clarify, it's to remove the term alternatives to abortion, is what I heard.
Correct, Madam Chairman.
Okay. So committee, we're on page 6, line 23. Is there a second to Representative Yin's motion to amend? Okay, seeing lack of a second, that amendment has failed. Or that motion has failed. Further amendments, further discussion in committee. Case. We have, go ahead, Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, just on discussion, I mean, I guess I need some help from members of the committee on whether we need the definition of abortion, abortion-inducing drug, contraception. I mean, why do we need half of these definitions? Because we know what pregnancy centers are without including all of these definitions in the bill. Pre-viability separation procedure. We don't actually use pre-viability separation procedure anywhere in the bill. It's basically only used in the definition of abortion. I guess I need some help. And if no one wants to discuss it, that's fine. I mean, that's your prerogative, but I need some help understanding why we have any of these definitions in the bill.
Thank you, Representative Yin. I would just answer that definitions are common in bills. They're often used in bills. And if
Sure.
committee has any other further.
Yeah,
Representative Gugumas.
I would say that our courts have been showing that they need all the help they can get with definitions, or else they will be left to interpret it in whatever way they want. So this offers clarity to the courts.
Further discussion? Representative Yin.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, so we'll have one definition of abortion in this bill. We'll have another definition of abortion in 117 probably, and 126 probably as well. I actually think it makes it less clear to the public. If we have all of these definitions, I think if we have definitions, we should at least have one and refer to that one definition. But we have separate bills, so maybe we need it in all the bills for now, and then we'll clean it up later.
Thank you. Further discussion on the bill or amendments? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to move, we strike from line 13 on page 10 through line 2 on page 12. It's the special protections that give me problems with this bill. The rest of it, I'm very supportive. I think this is causing some legal constitutional problems. Again, we're giving special protections to one group that I don't see anywhere else in Wyoming statute. So I would like to take that out so I could vote for this bill.
I will second that.
Okay, so there has amendment by Representative Clouston on page 10, starting on lines 13, moving forward to all the way to page 12, you said, line 2?
Correct.
Okay. And that has been seconded. No. Mr. Caldwell, do you have that? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, discussion on Representative Clouston's amendment. Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to further discussion just a little bit, as far as legal remedies go, with protections for these centers, we have a mobile unit at ours, and they have been threatened, and different things have gone on, and it has been promoted to come there, and they really fear for things at the length of violence that there has been. So the center itself has been threatened. The individuals on and in the mobile unit have been threatened, and the clients outside of the mobile unit have been threatened.
Thank you. Further discussion? Representative Clouston.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Ottman. I appreciate those comments. I guess my answer to that is that if there are threats going on, they already have legal recourse, call law enforcement. They have protections in place. My issue with this is giving extra special protections and immunity from tort liability and other things that this bill gives that nobody else has. So my reason just to delete this is because we already have laws to help protect these people. And if they are being threatened, you know, they need to call law enforcement and they have civil rights.
Thank you. Further discussion, Representative Gugemas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding this bill is addressing government entities coming after these pregnancy centers. So I guess I don't see where the problem is, especially when we're seeing in our nation government entities specifically targeting pregnancy centers. So they're not, I haven't seen anywhere where there's government entities targeting hospitals or anything like that. So it's like there's a double standard going on. And I believe that's what this bill is meant to address, is because there's been a movement to target this particular group from the government entities, but it's not across the board. It's just specifically to this. So therefore, I don't think this bill is overstepping any bounds when it appears that the government entities in our nation are overstepping their bounds by going after pregnancy centers in the first place.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment, Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the other concerns I would have with that is if you remove that, what if you get into one of those scenarios where you've got people constantly suing somebody even though they're innocent until they just have to completely give up because they can't afford the court fees. So that'd be one of my concerns with that amendment if we were to remove that.
Further discussion on the amendment. Okay, Representative Heft.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. With that amendment, it would appear that it would get the purpose of this bill. It's specifically in the tagline, Wyoming Pregnancy Centers, Autonomy and Rights. If we remove this language, the bill has no purpose.
On the amendment, further discussion. Okay, seeing none, sensing the urge to vote by a show of hands and a voice vote, all those in favor of Representative Clouston's amendment, please state aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Okay, that amendment has failed. Further amendments, further discussion, committee on the bill. Okay, seeing none, sensing the urge to vote, Mr. Caldwell, if you'd call the roll on House Bill 3.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 3. Representative Clouston.
No.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Heft. Representative McCann. Representative Ottman.
Aye.
Representative Thayer. Representative Wasserberger.
Aye.
Representative Yen.
No.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, that is 7 aye and 2 no.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. House Bill 3. Pardon me? Mr. Caldwell.
Apologies. Oh, my mistake. My apologies. That would be 6 aye and 3 no.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. All right, committee, House Bill 3 has passed. If there's anybody that would like to carry that bill on the floor, please contact me after the meeting. We will move on committee to the next bill. House Bill 4, titled Birthing Centers Medicaid Coverage, is now on the table for your consideration. Again, committee, this bill was sponsored by Joint Labor and Health. And I'll give a brief overview of this bill. This is House Bill 4. It proposes a narrow and new change to Wyoming's Medicaid program. The bill authorizes Medicaid reimbursement for services provided by licensed birthing centers, bringing those facilities within the list of services covered under the Wyoming Medical Assistance and Services Act. The term birthing center is defined in Wyoming State Statute 352901. And I'll just share it with the committee. It means a facility which operates for the primary purpose of performing deliveries and is not part of a hospital. Under current law, Medicaid covers a range of medical services, but birthing centers are not explicitly included. This bill amends statute to add birthing center services as already defined in Wyoming law to the list of authorized Medicaid services. It does not create new birthing centers, change licensing standard, or alter the scope of practice. It strictly authorizes payment eligibility. Okay, and we will go ahead and move on. Committee, are there any questions for LSO regarding the structure or any specific terminology or anything in the bill? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Are there any government agencies that would like to come forward to testify on House Bill 4? Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome. If you'd state your name and which agency you represent, we'd love to hear your testimony on the bill.
Good morning. I'm Jesse Springer. I'm the state Medicaid agent.
And good morning, members of the committee. My name is Franz Fuchs, Deputy Director, Department of Health. And Madam Chairman, we're just here to answer any questions you might have on this bill.
Thank you for joining us. Committee, any questions of Mr. Springer or Department of Health regarding House Bill 4? Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Can you tell us what is Medicaid reimbursement for a birth in Wyoming? What are we paying? And then also maybe kind of give us an idea of how many Medicaid births we have in Wyoming.
If either one of you would like to answer that.
Madam Chairman, Representative Clouston, ballpark, we reimburse approximately, including the facility and the physician, probably around $7,000 for a birth, a normal, uncomplicated pregnancy. And that's the figure that essentially we provide to Department of Family Services for the birth cost recovery. So it's kind of an average of those claims. I believe Medicaid births are around 2,200 a year, 2,000-ish a year. It's been trending down. Hopefully that answers your question.
Follow up, Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. Do we reimburse same levels depending on who the provider is? Or there, does an OB and a midwife, are they reimbursed at the same levels?
Chairman Rodriguez-Williams, Representative Clouston. So we would pay a percentage to a midwife or a certified nurse midwife of the physician fee. So it's a lower percentage, and it varies by different types of licensure, between 85% to 100% for a physician. And then just to the specific cause of this bill, a hospital would be paid a facility fee, where currently we do not pay a facility fee to birthing centers. There's currently no birthing centers licensed in Wyoming, to my knowledge. The birthing centers that you may see advertised are operating as homes, essentially, under licensure. So we're not paying that. But once they obtain that licensure, they would qualify for a facility fee. But right now, under state statute, we're not able to pay a facility fee because it's not an enrollable provider type under Title 42, which is what the bill is addressing.
Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, thank you. So it was interesting to read the fiscal note, but I mean, based on the questions just asked, You're basically saying that the state would generally save money on uncomplicated births because reimbursement for uncomplicated pregnancies at these birth centers will generally be cheaper than ones at the hospital under a doctor.
Go ahead.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams, Representative Ian, yes. So, I mean, we're kind of approaching this from an economic perspective. Births, this probably would not induce or, create more demand for births. There's probably gonna be a certain number of births that happen. So it's gonna be more substitution away from hospitals towards these birthing centers for uncomplicated deliveries.
Further questions, committee? Of the department? Okay, seeing none. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and open it up for members of the public. If anybody would like to come forward, we have 3 chairs up here. Good morning. If you'd please state your name and who you're with, and we'd love to hear your testimony.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Morey, and along with my business partner, Allison Hayek, own the first freestanding birth center in the state of Wyoming. Our birth center is located here in Cheyenne, and we are on track to serve 60 to 80 families this year alone. We are actually CABC nationally accredited birth center. We have state licensed providers. We're currently working with the state right now to get our licensing. It's mostly kind of going through the building codes, but we're actively working with the state to obtain our license. And we're also hoping to be a model for other birth centers in the state in the near future to help solve some of the maternal health crisis. First of all, we would like to thank you for working on our simple but crucial bill during a short interim budget session. We recognize the goal of this session is to save money for our state while also supporting our citizens in Wyoming. This bill does exactly that. While this committee has been working on this and understanding the point of this bill, we want to give you talking points to share with your peers so that this can pass in a timely and efficient manner. Because it involves the word Medicaid, there's a possibility it's an automatic no, but like the Department of Medicaid had stated, we're not really increasing any funds about Medicaid. We want to make sure that all the legislators understand that this is not the case. Quick point, this bill does save Medicaid money. If it is not passed, Wyoming is actually out of compliance with federal law on the Affordable Care Act and could risk losing matching federal funds for Medicaid. And this bill is actually simply the next step. When the state regulated birth centers a few decades ago, this step was just not completed. It ensures birth centers are recognized facilities for Medicaid to pay. We helped write this bill because this is the legal next step for Wyoming Medicaid to cover birth centers as recognized licensed facilities. The state regs on birth centers has long been in effect. Until now, no one has tried to start a birth center, so it just stayed unnoticed. This bill should have been introduced several years ago. Currently, because the facility taxonomy code for a birth center is not in the enrollment drop-down menu for Medicaid, there is no way for Wyoming Medicaid to cover our facility fees. This means that our hands are also tied with charging our Medicaid clients to cover facility fees. So we're only receiving a very small portion for our Medicaid clients, which we are serving at least 30% of our clients are Medicaid. We are eating a lot of money with our Medicaid clients, but are determined to serve them. This is a straightforward, simple bill and has no reason not to pass, as the state of Wyoming has already regulated and licensed midwives and birth centers. This just ensures that the taxonomy code for a birth center is enrollable in Wyoming, which would put Wyoming Medicaid back into compliance with national laws. Federally, all insurance companies are required to reimburse for licensed facilities, including birth centers. We recognize that this legislative group is focused on limiting state spending, and we want to be clear that our bill will actually save the state money. This is not a bill that in any way increases Medicaid costs or coverages. We reduce Medicaid costs overall in several ways, but most impactful is that midwifery and birth centers have a much lower C-section rate than hospitals. If we can compare the same low-risk, healthy women in both populations, the financial difference between paying for a low-risk vaginal birth and a C-section is significant. Nationally, birth centers boast around a 6% C-section rate versus over 30% rate nationally in hospitals. Without access to OB or midwifery care in Wyoming, births become more expensive for the state, and its emergency services are more taxed as women have less access to prenatal care, are more likely to use emergency services, and more likely to be emergently transferred out of state. Any client for which Medicaid pays a birth center facility fee for is one less client that Medicaid has to pay a hospital facility fee for. Like stated earlier, we're not creating more births. Even if we got reimbursed the same rate, which we would love to do, we are not creating an increase in facility fees. We are merely transferring who the payout goes to. Even if Medicaid ended up paying a facility fee to us for a client in labor and that client got transferred to a hospital, studies, and there are specific Medicaid studies on this, show that Medicaid still comes out ahead financially. Less than 10% of clients end up transferring. They often go on to still have uncomplicated natural vaginal births, shorter hospital stays, and increased breastfeeding rates, which all save Medicaid money. This bill is vital to families as well as small businesses in Wyoming. As more and more Wyoming hospitals are closing their doors to OB services, midwives and birth centers are a natural, safe, and economic solution. If this bill does not pass, it puts Wyomingites as well as medical professionals and birth centers in financial strain. Additionally, it does put the state of Wyoming out of compliance with national CMS laws and in jeopardy of losing federally matching funds, which is, to our understanding, is at least 50%, as the State Department of Health shared with this committee in October. Thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Committee, any questions? Ms. Murray? Okay, Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you for coming and testifying today, and congratulations on your business. I was just curious on the reimbursement rates. I'm just under the impression, is the reimbursement rates getting it done through the hospital and Medicaid, is it just higher than what it is at your guys' midwiferys, or?
So,
Ms. Murray?
yes, thank you, Chairman and Representative Wasserberger, for the question. Currently, our providers do get covered by Medicaid, which, as stated, we get about 70% of what OBs get for the same services. We have not been able to get Medicaid to tell us what they pay the hospitals nor what they would pay us. And it's our understanding that that's worked out at a later time, but we do expect to get reimbursed at least sustainably. So right now, the portion that we get from Wyoming Medicaid for just the provider fee is about 1/4 of what it even costs us to have a birth at our center. So we're hoping to at least cover costs with Medicaid. And as I said, 30 to 35% of our clients are Medicaid.
Thank you. Additional questions for Ms. Murray? Okay, seeing none, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Any additional public comment? Okay, I'm going to ask the department if they can come back up. Thank you. Just a quick follow-up question, just regarding something she mentioned in her testimony regarding federal compliance and the risk of if the bill weren't to pass, federal funds being in jeopardy. So I'd like if you could speak to that.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams, Jesse Springer again. The federal law is the Affordable Care Act, Section 2301 of the Affordable Care Act. We have a Medicaid state plan waiver currently in place because there are no licensed freestanding birth centers in Wyoming at this time. So under the federal law, if there are no centers that are licensed, the federal law does not apply. So when that came into place in 2013, we pursued a waiver because there was know when to enroll. So the reality was we couldn't meet the law. So we have a waiver that's approved by the federal government. Once there is a licensed facility, we would then have to communicate that to the federal government and begin the process of adding the service to state plan. So it's really kind of a factual situation. There is not currently in Wyoming a licensed freestanding birth center. There may be one within the next 2 to 6 months. I don't know. But once that fact changes, we would then have to bring that to the legislature, likely in the next session, and say, now we're out of compliance. Could you add this service? So this would be, avoiding that situation that we would be out of compliance for 6 months, possibly on a corrective action plan. Likely not going to lose funds, but it just avoids the decision being out of compliance.
Thank you. And can you tell me, is there a grace period within that gap of the new birth center being licensed, your application, and when we convene? Obviously, we don't work full time, so.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams, there would be a gap. And so, there would be a situation where we could have covered it as licensed and allowed by state law, but it's not allowed by Title 42 at this time. So then we would be, it'd be 3 to 6 months likely. So we would probably begin the process of the state plan contingent on knowing that whether that would actually be authorized by statute. It is required by federal law to cover freestanding birth centers if they exist in the state and are licensed by the state. So it does create that situation that once that licensure occurs, it triggers other events that we would need to comply with. Right now, we haven't set rates. We haven't done anything because it's not authorized by statute. There are no licensed freestanding birth centers. So we haven't spent the money and the time to calculate those rates, gather costs, do the state surveys that we normally do, because all those tasks do cost us money to do. So we haven't performed those tasks. I mean, it would be a lower rate than a hospital because the cost structure of a freestanding birth center is much lower than a hospital. I'm just factually. So the rate will be lower, and there's a number of national studies on what that rate would be for the facility fee. It wouldn't change that we do already pay the enrolled midwives at freestanding birth centers or even at home births. So it's not going to change that situation. It's just going to change that we start paying a facility fee, which is fair. I mean, the centers are delivering already. So there is already Medicaid clients going to the Medicaid women going to these centers and having births. We're just not paying a facility fee.
Thank you. Representative Clouston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. The OB desert that we've been talking about for years, the governor's task force, that kind of thing. Can you give us any idea of hospitals, communities that have lost labor and delivery units, say in the last 1 or 2 years?
Sir.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams, Representative Clouston. My understanding is the most recent has been Wheatland, sort of paused its, I'm not sure exactly if they made a final decision on that, but they certainly paused their services for labor delivery. Prior to that was Kemmer the last couple of years and Rollins. And then before that, we've had a significant decline in areas like Riverton. I'm trying to think of a couple others, but there's also been longstanding, maternity deserts that have never had labor and delivery services. So we've tried to distinguish, the new ones from the old ones, and we're happy to send that brief that we provided a couple of years ago on that, or last year.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've kind of danced around the money issue. Generally speaking, I'm against Medicaid expansion, but it sounds like to me, overall, this would be less money. Can you give me a definite answer on that? You can't predict who's going to go where, but you would think that that's going to drop the overall cost.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams, Representative McCann, yes, this would almost certainly cost less than the current status quo.
Thank you. Can you remind me, during the interim, we talked a little bit about the radius of where the birthing centers have to be, where they operate out of. Was that in rules or in statute?
Chairman Rodriguez Williams, I'm not entirely sure on that. I can get back to you whether, I believe, yeah, I'm just don't want to misguide you here. I'll have to look at it. But
No
there is a
problem.
distinction between, so that really pertains to the, I'll get back to you. I'm sorry.
Problem. Thank you. Okay. Looks like that's all the questions we have. Thank you for joining us. But we have one more. Sorry, Representative Wasserberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you. Just to get more clarification on this making it cost less, is that just because you'd have more options? Some people are going to just charge less than what the hospital would charge, so to say. Is that just to understand the economics a little better?
Madam Chairman, Representative Wasserberger, so basically the number of births we assume is fixed, that the introduction of a new birthing center is not going to create more births. People aren't going to say, oh yeah, there's a birthing center nearby, I'm going to have a baby. Like we doubt that's going to happen to any significant degree. So the number of births will be constant. And what you're doing is you're diverting births, you're substituting, you're diverting births that would have gone to a hospital to a birthing center. And because the facility fee is lower and the midwife rate is lower than an obstetric physician, you're having the same number of births being essentially costing less for relatively uncomplicated deliveries. I think the only risk is if there is, births that may have been handled in a hospital at an uncomplicated level, but maybe for some reason someone goes to a birthing center, but they have to be transported to a hospital because something goes wrong or something, requires more medical intervention. Maybe there's a risk of slightly higher costs in a very small number of cases, but I think that risk is low in the big picture as far as from a cost perspective.
Thank you. All right. Let's keep it short. We've got one more online and then we convene at 10. So thank you, Representative Thayer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, gentlemen, so in on the first page on line 1, it's medical assistance and services. That will cover the facility because we've been I just want to make sure that is covering the facility.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Representative Thayer, yes, that is accurate. We're currently, we already pay for the midwife services, which are already listed. This would add just the facility fee, as the Jesse mentioned.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We will move to online. If you'd state your name and who you represent, and we'll hear your testimony.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Madam Chair, representatives, I am Allison Hayek, co-owner of Earthside Birth and Wellness Center in Cheyenne, Wyoming's first freestanding birth center. I'm here today in support of House Bill 4. We are all here today in support of the goal of remedying Wyoming's maternal health deserts. There's a state-licensed, well-researched, long-standing type of outpatient healthcare center that specializes in pregnancy, birth, and postpartum care. They're staffed by state-licensed midwives as the healthcare providers. They're called freestanding birth centers. Freestanding birth centers and midwives could provide high-quality prenatal care to each pregnant woman in the state of Wyoming in conjunction with a telehealth or regional OB or maternal fetal medicine doctor when needed. Clients could choose to birth at a center or travel to a regional hospital for birth. In the coming years, each Wyoming Medicaid client that utilizes pregnancy or birth care at centers will keep that client in the state. The Medicaid spending, as we've covered, will be lowered for those clients compared to either hospital care in the state, or especially the appropriate comparison point is otherwise keeping the families that otherwise would travel out of state specifically for midwifery care. So it's keeping those out of state costs down and keeping the care in the state. As we've covered, this bill would bring Wyoming into compliance once we are licensed, and we're actively in the process of the decades-old CMS regulations, which cover birth center facility fees. New birth centers across the state are poised to be a small business or a nonprofit answer to our maternal health deserts. Receiving Medicaid facility fees is one big puzzle piece moving forward in this journey. This bill stands as the first and only recent meaningful legislative action in answer to Wyoming's widening maternal health deserts. Let's address this now and move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Committee, any questions of Ms. Hick? Okay, see none. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else, Mr. Caldwell? Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment. Committee, what is your pleasure on House Bill 4?
I'll move the bill.
House Bill 4 has been moved by Representative Wasserberger, second by Representative Clouston. Discussion amendments from the committee. Question being called by Representative Yin. Mr. Caldwell, if you take the roll on House Bill 4.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 4. Representative Clouston. Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Heft. Representative McCann. Representative Ottman.
Aye.
Representative Thayer. Representative Wasserberger.
Aye.
Representative Yen.
Aye.
Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, that is 8 aye and 1 no.
Okay, House Bill 4 has passed. If anybody would like to carry that bill on the floor, please let me know. And Mr. Caldwell, well, our meeting is adjourned.